Hello, I'm Shirai Satoko. It is a great pleasure for me to be here and share with you some of the findings from my fieldwork in the nDrapa language. Here are the contents of this talk. First, I provide some basic information about the language, geography, and culture of the nDrapa people. Next, I will profile features of the nDrapa language. The last section will discuss some of the distinctive linguistic phenomena. In this talk, I will focus on the directional prefixes and related phenomena. Okay, the first part is language and people. nDrapa is spoken in these mountainous areas where steep mountains and deep valleys meet. It is located in the western part of Sichuan province, China. nDrapa is a Tibetan term for the people who speak this language. In Chinese, it is termed nDrapa, pronounced as Zapa in Sichuan Mandarin. In their old name, the people is referred to as nDrapi, and the language is called nDrake. nDrapa is one of the Tibeto-Burman languages which belong to the Sino-Tibetan language family. A number of languages with similar typological features are distributed in the vicinity of nDrapa, forming a language area. We call the area as the Qiangik language area or the Western Sichuan ethnic corridor. These languages are also hypothesized to form a genetic branch called Qiangik. In particular, genetic relationships are being established for the Galungic group of languages indicated with the blue triangles. The Qiangik language area is located at the eastern end of the Tibetosphere or the Tibetan cultural area. The Qiangik languages are surrounded by three major languages with a written tradition and numerous speakers, that is, Chinese dialects, Tibetan or Tibetic languages, and Yi or Loloish languages. nDrapa is one of such minor languages. And in this area, villages are scattered among steep mountain valleys, and so they themselves say each village has its own lect. According to preceding studies, approximately 10,000 people speak nDrapa as their first language. There is no writing system or tradition of writing in this language. Tibetan has been the traditional lingua franca in this area, and Chinese is now the predominant language. So, nDrapa has been under the strong influence of these languages. Dialectal differences exist even in this small language, and it is considered that there are three dialect groups: Northern, Southern, and Central. In this talk, I will use data from my fieldwork on the Metro dialect, the most northern variety. nDrapa people live in stone houses as seen in these pictures. They are known for their matrilineal society with so-called working marriages. They live by cultivating a small field, raising a few livestock, and gathering wild vegetables. Men often go to distant towns to work. This is a traditional kitchen. They sit on a wooden floor and they have a big hearth in their kitchen. Okay, I hope you're interested in them. Then let's move on to the linguistic part. Phonology. This slide shows the inventory of consonants and vowels. In addition to these basic segments, we can find prenasalized consonants, for example, belly, all, or pay, ice, and so on. Pre-aspirated consonants, such as ab, to learn, top, to carry, and so on, and other consonant clusters. nDrapa has word tones, that is, distinctive pitch patterns that are carried by phonological words. They are categorized into 4 tones according to the pitch pattern of the first 2 syllables. High level, which is realized as high of the first 2 syllables. Second is high falling and realized as high and low of first 2 syllables. Third, low rising, that is low high in the first 2 syllables. And low rising falling, which is realized as rising and low of the first 2 syllables. And the rest syllables are realized as low. However, the lexical tone may be overridden by the intonation or post-lexical prosody of the topic or focus. For example, the word for teacher is gege. So this is a plain pattern. Lexically, this word has tone 3, low rising tone. However, when it comes to the topic position, it may be pronounced as gege, as high, or it is focused on. If it is focused on, it can be said as gege, as tone 4, rising and low. From a viewpoint of morphological typology, nDrapa mostly shows agglutinative features. It employs both prefixes and suffixes. For example, verbs can take a directive prefix, a negative prefix, an aspectual suffix, and so on. In this example, dotian chingomokshwa, this means nothing other than the hearth ash have remained. And actually it means everything has lost. In this case, the word stem is sh, remain, and 2 prefixes are attached before the stem, ng, outward directive, m, the negative, and a suffix. A suffix is attached here. A is a factual and perfective suffix. Adjective stems can be reduplicated productively and form nominalizations. That is, adjective stems have verbal features since they can take verbal affixes, but the reduplicated adjectives show nominal features, such as being an argument of a sentence. For example, zo is the stem that means be sour. And this stem can have verbal affixes such as oza. This means it has become sour or it has rotten. And upward directive prefix is attached, and the perfective suffix is also attached. These are verbal affixes. On the other hand, when it is reduplicated as zozo, it is nominalized. So it can take a classifier, noun classifier, and it can mean a sour one, something sour. Syntactically, it is a vowel final language. The basic constituent order is SOV. Grammatical relations are indicated by case markers, and case markers are post-nominal enclitics. So, for example, nga 미스 시시러, this means I am petting a cat, and the subject of transitive verb is not marked, just nga. And the object is marked with 우, 미스. However, such accusative marker can be dropped if the grammatical relation is clear from the context. But in this case, nga is not marked and the object 미스 is marked with the accusative marker 우, and then 시시러, the verbal predicate comes. In the structure of a noun phrase, the head noun can be modified both from before and from after. So there are pre-head modifiers and post-head modifiers. Pre-head modifiers include demonstratives, nouns, and nominalizations, whereas post-head modifiers include adjectives in the reduplicated form and quantifiers. And this is an example of a noun phrase, made Kimura choroi, one ball that his mother gave him. So the head noun is this one, choro, a ball, and mother gave, made this is nominalized with the suffix m, and genitive is attached to this adnominal clause, or maybe this is similar to a so-called relative clause. This is a verbal-based nominalization, and it modifies the head noun before the head noun, and then head noun comes, and after the head noun, E classifier is attached. And in this case, this classifier means one. So this is one of the quantifiers. And this means one ball, in choroi, that his mother gave me the kimura. There are number of sentence final particles for mood and modality, like many other East Asian languages have. For example, te is for hearsay, pa is for inferential, mo for confirmative, re is for factual or allophoric, a or ra for double H question, me or me for polar question, sa for admirative, and so on. So, for example, when they say it is raining, the form with no sentence final particle is used. For example, moku atere, it is raining. This pattern is used if the speaker directly knows the fact. But if the speaker learns about it from someone else, for example, his friend said that it's raining, and he now knows it's raining. Then he says moku aterete. The last day is the hearsay sentence final particle. And so this means it's raining, but implies that they say it's raining or I heard it's raining. Okay, now let's talk about some linguistic topics. Here, I'd like to focus on directional prefixes and related phenomena. First, please take a look at this example. This is a quote from their folklore. And the situation is like this. A rich man and Uncle Tempa, a very famous wise man, went out to do business with a lot of grain. And the next at night, they stayed at a temple. But on the next morning, they found the grain disappeared. But actually, it was Uncle Tempa's plan. Okay, then the servants of the rich man went everywhere outside the temple to look for the grain. This part, 옆으로 너비두 도철에. Servants outside look for, go and go. In this part, the verb 쳐, which means go, takes the prefix to. Okay, in the next part, but Uncle Tempa went up into the temple and did something. This part, Akutempa yosa. This means Uncle Tempa knows everything. Genbe kabi ochare. Temple inside, inside of temple, he went. In this part, the verb 쳐, go, takes o, prefix o, a different prefix than the last part. And then he went down to where the rich man was. Ho, ngoro akutemba, that akutemba. Geburo achore. The rich man's place went. And here, 쳐, the verb stem, takes a, prefix a. So the verb takes different prefixes in accordance with the context or something like that. Okay? These prefixes show the direction of movement. As now you know, they live in the steep mountains and deep valleys, and when they go upward, the prefix o is attached. And this prefix alternated to o in the previous example. Similarly, when they go downward, a is attached before the verb stem, and this vowel is not altered. And upstream or inward, g is used, and outward or downstream, ng is used. And the prefix the indicates indefinite or neutral direction. The next example is ngaranyonya panjabi attiare. And in this example, ndrapi here denotes the nDrapa region, and the verb ti takes the upward directional prefix. Since this sentence was uttered in the town of Stau, which is at a higher altitude than nDrapa. nDrapa is the origin of the movement, upward movement. nDrapa is lower and Stau is upper. And the directional prefix suggests the direction of movement. It is worth noting that the noun phrase nDrapi do not have a case marker. Of course, in nDrapa, the nominative case marker is a zero form, so the subject, ngarannyonyapa, do not have any case marker, but nRapi, the origin of movement, do not take any case marker. Actually, nDrapa do not have proper case marker for the origin of movement or for from in English, but they have directional prefixes. So they knows the direction of movement, and they know which of star or nDrapa is located upper position. So they know whether it is the origin or goal of the movement. So if the verb implies a movement, the directional prefixes indicate the direction of movement. So these verbs may take any of the directional prefixes to indicate the direction of movement. For example, basic and movement verbs or run, flow, breathe, push, or arrive. Then, what about verbs that can't seem to choose a direction? For example, to eat or to die. They also take one of the directional prefixes, but the connection is fixed. Most verbs are lexically associated, with only one of the directional prefixes. Such directional prefixes are obligatory in the perfective and the imperative. For example, kotsu. Kotsu is eat it, the imperative. And this inward directional prefix is obligatory in this case before the word eat. Tsu. And for example, 目と死んだ朝あれ。朝。Sorry. The mother told the children what they should do later before she died. In this case, the verb しょ takes the neutral directional prefix, and so order or told takes the downward directional prefixes. These are fixed connections. So, for example, eat cannot take, for example, downward directional prefix, or die cannot take for example, upward directional prefixes. It is fixed in this language. Some semantic shifts are found on the directional prefixes, especially on the outward directional prefix ng. We consider this was originally the outward directional prefix. For example, ngki, give birth or to be born, can take this prefix only. This is the lexically fixed connection. And this is also used for the downstream movement. So, for example, ngli means a gentle breeze blows from upstream to downstream. Toward downstream, so the prefix ng is used. Since this verb stem, a breeze blows, li is one of the movement verbs, so it can choose any of the directional prefixes in accordance with the direction of movement or blowing. So if they say kali, it means a breeze blows from downstream to upstream. K is inward and upstream directional prefix. However, for a strong wind like a storm, only the outward directional prefix is used. Ngati, a strong wind blows. This verb cannot choose the directional prefix. So this is not directive, but this implies something drastic movement or drastic event. Ng is often found with such verbs implies a drastic change or drastic event. Finally, I'd like to point out the areal features. Having a set of directional prefixes is one of the areal features shared by the languages of the Changic language area. In the Changic languages, a directive marker can fall into the preverbal slot of motion or orientational verbs according to their direction of motion. However, other features vary among languages. For example, nDrapa shows the feature that it is obligatory in perfective and imperative, and semantic shift from outward to drastic. But these features are different in other languages. These are references and more references. Lastly, I'd like to thank the consultants who taught me the nDrapa language. Thank you all for listening to the end. Akka, thank you, nDrapa.